Nurse Jennifer Walsh froze mid-step in the hallway of Sunset Manor, her medication cart rattling to a complete stop as an impossibly deep, mournful sound echoed through the assisted living facility. The sound wasn't coming from any of the 73 elderly residents under her care. Martha Stewart's weathered hand flew to her chest as she witnessed something that shouldn't exist. Buddy, their gentle 300-pound black bear, was crying, actual tears streaming down his massive face as he pressed against the reinforced glass of the courtyard door. Harold McGee's coffee cup shattered against the floor, the ceramic explosion barely registering above the bear's heartbroken vocalizations. Outside stood a silver-haired man in his late 60s, equally frozen, his own eyes wide with disbelief and recognition. "Sweet Jesus," Martha whispered, remembering how Buddy had never shown emotion toward any visitor in the 4 years he'd lived at the facility. "That bear knows him." "Doctor." Patricia Williams grabbed the facility's emergency phone with shaking fingers, her voice barely steady. "Security to the courtyard, immediately." Who was this stranger, and why was their therapy bear, who had never cried, never shown distress, now sobbing like a child who'd found his long-lost father? Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Samuel Mitchell stood motionless outside the glass doors of Sunset Manor, his calloused hands trembling as he stared at the impossible sight before him. The bear, his bear, was larger now, his black fur streaked with gray around the muzzle, but the Y-shaped scar on his left ear remained unmistakable. 7 years had passed since Buddy vanished from his research cabin in the Smoky Mountains. 7 years of sleepless nights and unanswered prayers, yet here he was, pressing massive paws against reinforced glass like a child reaching for his father. "Buddy?" Sam whispered, his voice cracking with disbelief. "My boy, is that really you?" The bear's response was immediate and devastating. Buddy reared up on his hind legs, nearly 7 feet of muscle and fur, and began performing the greeting ritual Sam had taught him as a cub, a gentle clapping motion with his front paws, followed by what could only be described as a wave. The same gestures that had made him famous in animal behavior journals, the same movements that proved their extraordinary bond transcended the typical relationship between researcher and subject. Inside the facility, chaos erupted as residents and staff witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about their beloved therapy bear. Martha Stewart, who had become Buddy's primary caregiver over the past 4 years, watched in stunned silence as the animal who had never shown aggression or distress began exhibiting behaviors she'd never seen. Buddy was alternating between desperate attempts to reach the glass and soft, keening vocalizations that sounded remarkably like crying. "I've worked with animals for 50 years, Martha told Dr. Patricia Williams, who had rushed to the scene. "That's not just recognition, honey. That's pure heartbreak." Harold McGee, the Korean War veteran who initially feared Buddy but had grown to love him, wheeled his chair closer to the commotion. "In all my time here, I've never seen Buddy react to anyone like this. He's always been calm, gentle with us residents. This is different. This is personal." Jennifer Walsh, still gripping her medication cart, found herself torn between protocol and compassion. Her 8-year-old daughter Emma had spent countless afternoons after school drawing pictures with Buddy, teaching him simple games, treating him like the grandfather she'd never known. The bear's obvious distress was affecting everyone in the building. "Should we call animal control?" Jennifer asked Dr. Williams. Though every instinct told her this wasn't a dangerous situation, it was a reunion. Before anyone could respond, Sam pressed his palm against the glass door. Buddy immediately placed his massive paw on the opposite side, creating a mirror image that spoke louder than words. The bear's crying intensified, but now it carried a different tone, relief mixed with desperate longing. "Don't you dare call anyone," Martha declared, her voice carrying the authority of her 72 years. "That man out there isn't a stranger, That's Buddy's family, and we're about to find out why they've been apart. Dr. Patricia Williams made the decision that would change everything. Against every regulation in her 40-year medical career, she unlocked the courtyard door and allowed Sam Mitchell to enter the secured area where Buddy lived. The moment the door opened, the 300-pound bear moved with surprising gentleness, approaching Sam with careful, deliberate steps. "Easy, boy," Sam whispered, extending his weathered hand. "It's me. It's Papa." Buddy's response defied everything the nursing home staff thought they knew about animal behavior. The massive bear sat down like an obedient dog, lifted his right paw, and placed it gently in Sam's palm. Then, in a gesture that brought tears to every observer's eyes, Buddy leaned forward and rested his enormous head against Sam's chest, making soft, rumbling sounds that could only be described as purring. Martha Stewart wiped her eyes with a tissue, her voice thick with emotion. "In 4 years, I've never seen him react to anyone like this. That bear knows you, honey. He's been waiting for you." Sam's own tears flowed freely as he wrapped his arms around Buddy's massive neck. "I never stopped looking for you, boy. Not for one single day. When you disappeared from the cabin..." His voice broke, unable to finish the sentence. The story began to unfold in fragments as Sam struggled to compose himself. 7 years ago, he had been a respected animal behaviorist at the University of Tennessee, living in a remote research cabin with Buddy, whom he had raised from a 6-month-old orphaned cub. Their bond had been extraordinary. Buddy demonstrated intelligence levels unprecedented in bears, learning complex communication signals, showing emotional depth that challenged scientific understanding of animal cognition. "He wasn't just my research subject," Sam explained to the gathered crowd of residents and staff. "He was my family." When my wife Sarah died of cancer 5 years before Buddy disappeared, that bear was the only thing that kept me going. He seemed to understand grief, would sit with me during the worst nights, never leaving my side. Jennifer Walsh listened with growing amazement as Sam described their daily routines. How Buddy would wake him each morning with gentle nudges, how they would share meals together, how the bear had learned to respond to over 200 different hand signals and vocal commands. Most remarkably, Buddy had developed his own methods of communication, creating distinct vocalizations for different needs and emotions. "The university colleagues thought I was getting too attached," Sam continued, his hand never leaving Buddy's head. "They said I was anthropomorphizing, reading human emotions into animal behavior. But they were wrong. This bear has a soul, a heart as big as any human's." The disappearance had been devastating and mysterious. Sam had returned from a 3-day conference to find Buddy gone. No signs of struggle, no broken fencing, no clues except tire tracks leading away from the cabin. Local authorities investigated briefly, but concluded the bear had probably wandered off into the wilderness. Sam knew better. Buddy would never have left voluntarily. "I spent every penny I had searching for him," Sam said, his voice growing stronger as he spoke. "Private investigators, reward money, traveling to every wildlife facility in 5 states. When I retired early, my colleagues thought it was grief over Sarah. Truth was, I couldn't focus on anything except finding Buddy." Harold McGee wheeled closer, his military bearing evident even in his wheelchair. "Son, how did you end up here today? This can't be coincidence." Sam's explanation revealed the final piece of the puzzle. 3 weeks ago, his neighbor had shown him a viral video on social media. Footage of a bear at a Tennessee nursing home who seemed to draw pictures and interact with elderly residents in remarkably gentle ways. The bear in the video had a distinctive Y-shaped scar on his left ear, the same scar Buddy had received as a young cub when he'd gotten too close to a campfire. "I drove straight through the night from North Carolina," Sam said. "I didn't even call ahead, Didn't want to get my hopes up, but I had to know if it was really him. Dr. Williams found herself facing an impossible situation. Regulations clearly prohibited allowing unauthorized visitors to interact with facility animals, yet the evidence before her eyes contradicted everything she thought she knew about proper animal care protocols. Buddy was calmer and more content than she'd ever seen him, and Sam's obvious love for the bear was undeniable. "Mr. Mitchell," she said carefully, "we need to discuss this situation. Buddy has been a resident here for 4 years under very specific circumstances. There are legal considerations, liability issues, and the well-being of our other residents to consider." But even as she spoke the words, Dr. Williams could see the transformation in Buddy. The bear, who had always been gentle but somewhat aloof, was now fully engaged, responsive, almost glowing with contentment. Whatever the complications, this reunion was clearly beneficial for the animal's emotional health. Martha Stewart, ever the pragmatist, cut through the administrative concerns with characteristic directness. "Honey, we can worry about paperwork later. Right now, we've got a miracle happening in our courtyard, and I, for one, want to hear the whole story." The peaceful reunion shattered like glass when a black Mercedes sedan pulled into the Sunset Manor parking lot with aggressive precision. Richard "Rick" Thompson emerged from the driver's seat, his expensive suit and polished shoes incongruous against the homey atmosphere of the nursing home. At 65, Rick carried himself with the predatory confidence of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, and his cold blue eyes immediately locked onto the courtyard where Sam knelt beside Buddy. "Step away from my bear," Rick commanded, his voice cutting through the afternoon air like a blade. "You're trespassing on private property and interfering with my animal." Sam's face drained of color as he slowly stood, his hand instinctively remaining on Buddy's head. "Your bear. Buddy belongs with me. He's been my companion for 10 years. Rick pulled a leather portfolio from his car, snapping it open with theatrical precision. "I have documentation proving legal ownership of this animal for the past 4 years. Purchase receipts, veterinary records, training logs, and a valid permit to house an exotic animal." He thrust the papers toward Dr. Williams. "This bear was rescued from an illegal fighting operation in Kentucky. I paid $60,000 to save him and provide proper care." Martha Stewart's weathered face hardened with indignation. "That's a load of horse shit, and we all know it. That bear's been pining for someone his whole time here, and now we know why." "Ma'am, I understand your emotional attachment," Rick replied with practiced smoothness. "But emotion doesn't override legal ownership. I've invested over $200,000 in Buddy's care, housing, and medical treatment. I brought him to this facility specifically because of their excellent reputation for animal therapy programs." Jennifer Walsh studied the documents with growing confusion. The paperwork appeared legitimate. Official seals, veterinarian signatures, dates, and locations clearly documented. Yet something felt wrong about the entire situation. "Mr. Thompson, if you're Buddy's legal owner, why haven't you visited him in the 4 years he's been here?" Rick's composed facade flickered for just a moment. "I travel extensively for business. I trusted this facility to provide appropriate care, and my monthly payments have never been late. I monitor Buddy's well-being through security cameras and regular reports from staff." The mention of security cameras sent a chill through the assembled group. Harold McGee, his military instincts still sharp at 79, wheeled closer to Rick. "You've been watching us, watching our interactions with Buddy?" "I've been ensuring my investment was being properly maintained," Rick corrected coldly. "And now I find an unauthorized individual has somehow gained access to my animal. This facility's security protocols are clearly inadequate." Sam's hands began to shake with suppressed rage. "Buddy isn't an investment or property. He's a living being with emotions, memories, and relationships. Look at him. He knows me. He remembers our life together." Rick's response was swift and brutal. Animals form attachments to anyone who feeds them regularly. What you're interpreting as recognition is simply conditioned response to human presence. I've seen dozens of animals show similar behavior toward their handlers. But as Rick spoke, Buddy began exhibiting distressing behavior. The bear started pacing in tight circles, making low, whimpering sounds, occasionally looking between Sam and Rick as if trying to understand the conflict. His earlier joy had transformed into obvious anxiety, and his massive frame trembled with what could only be described as fear. "He's scared of you," Emma Walsh observed with the brutal honesty that only children possess. The 8-year-old had arrived after school to find the courtyard in chaos, and she watched Rick with the same wariness Buddy displayed. "Buddy's never scared of anyone who comes here. He likes everyone." Rick's mask of professional calm slipped further. "The animal is responding to raised voices and tension. Once this situation is resolved and the intruder removed, Buddy will return to normal behavior." "Intruder?" Sam's voice rose dangerously. "I raised that bear from a cub. I taught him to communicate, to trust humans, to be gentle with people like these residents. If anyone's an intruder here, it's you." Dr. Williams found herself caught between conflicting responsibilities. Rick's documentation appeared legally sound, yet Sam's obvious bond with Buddy couldn't be fabricated. The bear's behavior clearly indicated he knew Sam intimately, but Rick's ownership papers seemed legitimate. "Gentlemen, please," she intervened. "We need to resolve this calmly. Mr. Thompson, you say you rescued Buddy from a fighting ring. Do you have documentation about his life before that? Any records of previous ownership?" Rick's hesitation was barely perceptible, but Martha caught it. "You don't know where he came from before Kentucky, do you, honey? You just saw a trained bear and bought him without asking questions." "The previous circumstances are irrelevant," Rick snapped. "Legal ownership begins with documented purchase. Whatever relationship this man claims to have had with the animal is ancient history." Harold McGee had heard enough. His voice carried the authority of a man who'd faced down enemy soldiers and bureaucratic incompetence with equal determination. "Son, I've been watching people lie for 79 years and you're lying through your teeth. That bear knows Sam like family, and you know it." Rick's composure finally cracked completely. "Family? That animal is worth more than most people's houses. I've provided him with professional care, medical treatment, and a purpose helping elderly patients. What did this old man provide? A cabin in the woods and sentimental attachment?" The cruel dismissal of Sam's relationship with Buddy proved to be Rick's fatal error. Every resident and staff member in the courtyard had witnessed the genuine love between man and bear, and Rick's cold calculation of Buddy's monetary value revealed his true character. "Get out," Martha said quietly, her voice carrying more authority than any shout. "Get out of our home right now." The confrontation escalated beyond anyone's expectations when Rick Thompson made a phone call that changed everything. Within 30 minutes, 2 black SUVs arrived at Sunset Manor, disgorging a team of men in matching polo shirts emblazoned with Thompson Wildlife Services. They carried tranquilizer equipment, heavy-duty transport cages, and an air of professional efficiency that made the nursing home staff's blood run cold. "You can't be serious," Dr. Williams protested as Rick's team began setting up their equipment in the parking lot. "Buddy has been a resident here for 4 years. He's integrated into our therapy programs, beloved by our residents. You can't just take him." Rick's response was delivered with corporate coldness. "Dr. Williams, I've been more than patient with this facility's unprofessional handling of my property. The animal has been exposed to an unauthorized individual, creating a potential liability situation. I'm removing Buddy immediately for his own safety and proper evaluation." Sam stepped protectively in front of Buddy, who had grown increasingly agitated as the strangers assembled their equipment. The bear's earlier joy had transformed into deep anxiety, and he pressed close to Sam's side, occasionally looking toward the parking lot with obvious fear. "This is kidnapping," Sam declared, his voice shaking with rage and desperation. "That bear chose to stay with me for 10 years. He's not livestock to be bought and sold." "Actually, Mr. Mitchell, that's exactly what he is under Tennessee state law," Rick replied, consulting his phone. "Exotic animals are classified as personal property. My ownership is documented and legal. Your emotional attachment is irrelevant." Martha Stewart had heard enough. At 72 years old, she possessed the fearless indignation that comes with having nothing left to lose. "Rick Thompson, you listen to me, you cold-hearted son of a bitch. That bear has brought more joy to this place than anything in my 50 years of working with people. You want to drag him away to what? Lock him in some cage because your paperwork says you own him? Mrs. Stewart, I understand your attachment, but Buddy will receive excellent care at my facility in Georgia. He'll have proper veterinary supervision, appropriate housing, and professional handlers trained in exotic animal management." Emma Walsh, who had been quietly observing the adult conflict, suddenly stepped forward with the devastating honesty only children possess. "But he doesn't want to go with you. Can't you see he's scared? He's trying to hide behind Mr. Sam." Rick's facade cracked slightly at the child's observation. Animals don't make rational choices about their care. They respond to immediate stimuli and conditioning. Professional management requires removing emotional factors from decision-making. Harold McGee had remained silent during the argument, but the sight of Rick's tactical team preparing to forcibly remove Buddy triggered memories of his military service. "Son, I fought in Korea to protect people from exactly this kind of authoritarian bullshit. You march in here with your private army and think you can just take what you want because you have paperwork? Mr. McGee, this is a simple matter of property law. The animal belongs to me, and I'm retrieving my property. No one is being harmed." "Buddy's being harmed," Jennifer Walsh interjected, her voice thick with emotion. "Look at him. He's terrified. In 4 years of working here, I've never seen him show fear like this. He trusts Sam completely, but he's afraid of you and your people." The tension reached a breaking point when one of Rick's handlers approached the courtyard gate with a tranquilizer gun. Buddy immediately recognized the threat, rearing up on his hind legs and positioning himself between the armed man and Sam. His protective stance was unmistakable. This was not aggression toward humans in general, but specific defense against perceived danger to his beloved companion. "Stand down," Rick ordered his employee, recognizing that a tranquilized bear fight would create public relations nightmare. "We'll use the transport cage first." But Buddy's response to the approaching cage revealed something that challenged Rick's narrative about animal intelligence. The bear began performing a complex sequence of behaviors, sitting, lying down, rolling over, offering his paw, then standing and moving his arms in what appeared to be deliberate gestures. To the casual observer, it might have seemed like random tricks, but Sam recognized every movement. "He's telling our story," Sam whispered in amazement. "That's the sequence I taught him when he was a cub. Feeding time, nap time, playtime, good behavior, and then—" Sam's voice broke as he understood the final gesture. "He's asking me not to leave him again." Martha grabbed Jennifer's arm. "Are you getting this on video? People need to see this." Jennifer was already recording with her phone, capturing Buddy's desperate attempt at communication. The bear's performance was unprecedented in her experience. Purposeful, sequential, and clearly directed toward Sam as both audience and interpreter. Rick watched the display with growing unease. His entire justification for ownership rested on treating Buddy as valuable property rather than an intelligent being capable of emotional attachment and communication. The bear's obvious attempt to tell a story through learned behaviors undermined the fundamental premise of animal as property. "Trained behaviors," Rick said dismissively. but his voice lacked conviction. Animals can be conditioned to perform complex sequences without understanding meaning. Bullshit, Harold McGee retorted. I've seen plenty of trained animals in my day. That bear knows exactly what he's doing, and he's begging you not to separate him from his family. The word family triggered something in Rick's composure. For just a moment, his professional mask slipped, revealing something raw and painful beneath. Family. That's anthropomorphizing animal behavior. Buddy doesn't have family. He has handlers, caretakers, and owners. I provide superior care to anything this facility can offer. But Emma Walsh had noticed Rick's reaction to the word family. With the intuitive perception children often possess, she asked the question that cut to the heart of the matter. Mr. Thompson, do you have any family? Like kids or grandkids? Rick's silence was answer enough. Dr. Williams, trained to read human behavior and emotional needs, suddenly understood the deeper dynamic at play. Mr. Thompson, when did you first acquire Buddy? What year? 4 years ago, Rick answered automatically, then seemed to realize he'd revealed something significant. 4 years ago, Martha repeated thoughtfully. That's quite specific. Not 3 years, not 5 years. Exactly 4 years. What happened 4 years ago that made you decide you needed a therapy bear? Rick's composed exterior began crumbling under the accumulated pressure of questions, observations, and his own suppressed emotions. My personal circumstances are irrelevant to this legal matter. I own the animal, and I'm removing him from an unsafe situation. But Sam, despite his grief and fear, had spent enough years studying animal behavior to recognize human behavioral patterns as well. You've been watching us through those security cameras for 4 years. Not checking on Buddy's health or care, watching our interactions, watching him bond with residents, watching him provide comfort to elderly people who remind you of someone. That's enough, Rick snapped, but his authority was evaporating. Jennifer, still recording, posed the question that would change everything. Mr. Thompson, you mentioned earlier that animals form attachments to anyone who feeds them regularly. But Buddy doesn't just show affection for his caretakers here. He shows different behaviors with different residents. He's gentle with Mrs. Stewart, playful with Mr. McGee, protective of Emma, and reverential with Sam. That's not conditioned response. That's selective emotional attachment based on individual relationships. And, Emma added with devastating innocence, if Buddy was just responding to people who feed him, why isn't he happy to see you? You're supposed to be his owner. Shouldn't he be excited? Rick's team had stopped their preparations, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional complexity of the situation. These were men accustomed to transporting exotic animals, not separating what appeared to be a grieving child from his father. The breakthrough came when Martha, drawing on her decades of experience with both animals and human psychology, made the connection that exposed Rick's true motivation. Honey, 4 years ago you lost someone, didn't you? Someone who would have loved Buddy. Someone who would have understood the magic that Bear brings to people's lives. Rick's carefully constructed defense finally collapsed. My grandson, he whispered, the words seeming to tear from his throat. Tyler was 7 years old, car accident. I was traveling for business, wasn't there, when... He couldn't finish the sentence. The courtyard fell silent as the truth emerged. Rick hadn't rescued Buddy from an animal fighting ring out of altruism. He'd been searching for something to fill the devastating void left by his grandson's death. The sophisticated surveillance system, the distant monitoring, the reluctance to visit, all evidence of a man afraid to form new attachments while desperately needing the connection Buddy represented. Tyler loved animals, Rick continued, his voice breaking. Wanted to be a veterinarian when he grew up. When I found Buddy in that horrible place, beaten and traumatized, I thought Tyler would have wanted me to save him. Sam's anger began shifting toward something more complex. Understanding mixed with continued determination to protect Buddy. If Tyler would have wanted you to save Buddy, what do you think he'd want you to do now? Look at that bear, Rick. Really look at him. He's not your grandson, and he can't replace what you lost. But he deserves to be where he's happiest. The courtyard of Sunset Manor became a battlefield of emotions as Rick Thompson's carefully constructed world crumbled around him. His admission about Tyler's death had shifted the entire dynamic, but rather than creating sympathy, it revealed the depths of his selfishness. Buddy, sensing the escalating tension, began exhibiting behaviors that alarmed everyone present, pacing frantically, making distressed vocalizations, and repeatedly looking between Sam and the transport equipment with obvious terror. "You don't understand," Rick said, his voice raw with desperation. "After Tyler died, I couldn't function. My wife left me, said I was obsessed with work, never present for family. She was right, but I didn't know how to fix it. When I found Buddy in that fighting ring, beaten and traumatized, it was like Tyler was giving me a second chance to save something." Martha Stewart's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained iron. "Honey, I understand grief. Lost my husband of 47 years 3 years ago, but you can't heal your heart by breaking someone else's family." "Buddy isn't family," Rick protested weakly. "He's an animal. I provided him with professional care, medical attention, proper housing. Look at this place. It's a nursing home, not a wildlife facility." Harold McGee wheeled forward, his weathered hands gripping his wheelchair armrests. "Son, I've watched that bear interact with people for 4 years. He doesn't just provide therapy. He creates relationships. With Mrs. Stewart, he's patient and gentle, like he knows she needs someone to depend on her. With me, he's playful, gets me moving when my arthritis makes me want to give up. With little Emma, he's protective, but lets her lead their games. And with Sam," Jennifer added, her voice thick with emotion, "he's showing the kind of love I see between my daughter and her grandfather, if she had one who cared enough to stick around." Rick's composure cracked further as he watched Buddy's increasingly frantic behavior. The bear was now pressing against the courtyard fence, making sounds that were unmistakably distressed. His earlier joy at reuniting with Sam had transformed into panic at the prospect of another separation. "He's having a breakdown," Dr. Williams observed with clinical concern. "In 40 years of medical practice, I've seen this same pattern in patients facing traumatic separation from loved ones. That bear is experiencing genuine emotional distress." Emma Walsh, who had been quietly observing the adult drama, suddenly stepped forward with the brutal honesty that only children possess. "Mr. Thompson, if Tyler was here right now, what do you think he'd say about making Buddy cry like this?" The question hit Rick like a physical blow. He staggered slightly, then sank onto a nearby bench. His corporate confidence completely evaporated. He always said I was too mean to people. Even when he was 6 years old, he'd tell me to be nicer to waitresses, to say thank you to janitors, to pet stray dogs instead of ignoring them." "And now you're being mean to Buddy," Emma continued with devastating simplicity. "You're trying to take him away from his daddy, and that's making everyone sad." Rick looked around the courtyard at the assembled faces. Residents who had found purpose and joy through their relationships with Buddy, staff members who had witnessed daily miracles of interspecies compassion, and Sam, whose obvious love for the bear challenged every justification Rick had constructed for his ownership. "I thought I was protecting him," Rick whispered. "The fighting ring was horrible. They beat him, forced him to attack dogs for entertainment, kept him in a cage barely large enough to turn around. When I bought him, I promised myself I'd give him a better life." "But you gave him a prison with better food," Martha said bluntly. "Honey, Love isn't about providing care, it's about understanding what someone needs to be happy. Sam, despite his own emotional turmoil, found himself studying Rick with the analytical eye that had made him a successful researcher. You've been watching us through security cameras for 4 years. What did you see when you watched Buddy with the residents? Rick's answer came slowly, painfully. I saw him being happy in ways he never was with me. Even with professional trainers, veterinary care, a custom habitat, he was always distant, compliant, but not joyful. Here he initiates interactions. He seeks out specific people for specific needs. He creates art for God's sake. Because here he has family, Harold McGee said firmly. Not owners, not handlers, not managers. Family who love him for who he is, not what he represents or what he cost. The breakthrough came when Buddy himself provided the most compelling argument. The bear, who had been growing increasingly agitated, suddenly approached the fence where Rick sat. Instead of showing aggression or fear, Buddy gently placed his massive paw against the chain link just inches from Rick's hand. His vocalization shifted from distressed to something softer, almost questioning. He's trying to comfort you, Jennifer observed in amazement. Even though you're threatening to take him away, he can see you're in pain and he wants to help. Rick stared at the enormous paw so close to his own hand, tears streaming down his face. Tyler would have loved him so much. Would have understood what he was trying to say, would have... God, what have I done? The moment of recognition broke something fundamental in Rick's resolve. He slowly extended his hand toward the fence, and Buddy gently touched his palm through the chain link. The bear's touch was careful, deliberate, unmistakably compassionate. He forgives you, Emma said softly, but he still wants to stay with his family. Dr. Williams, recognizing the critical nature of the moment, approached Rick carefully. Mr. Thompson, I've worked in healthcare for 4 decades, and I've learned that healing comes from connection, not control. Buddy has created something here that benefits everyone, including you, if you'll let it. What do you mean? Rick asked, his voice barely audible. Stay, Martha said simply. Not as Buddy's owner, but as part of his extended family. Visit regularly, contribute to his care, be part of the community he's built here. That bear has enough love for everyone. He just proved it by comforting you despite everything. Rick's response revealed the depth of his isolation. I don't know how to be part of something without controlling it. Business, relationships, even grief. I've always tried to manage outcomes rather than experience them. Sam, despite his own pain and fear, found himself moved by Rick's vulnerability. Rick, I've spent my career studying animal behavior, but Buddy taught me about human behavior too. Love isn't about ownership or management. It's about showing up consistently and letting relationships develop naturally. But the legal documentation, Rick protested weakly. I have legitimate ownership papers, financial investment, legal responsibilities. Paperwork doesn't create family, Harold McGee declared. Love does. And that bear's love belongs here, with these people who understand what he needs. Jennifer, still recording the interaction, captured the moment when Buddy made his final argument. The bear moved to the center of the courtyard and began performing a complex sequence of behaviors, interacting with Martha's wheelchair, gently touching Harold's hand, carefully approaching Emma for a gentle pat, then returning to Sam's side and sitting in the exact position that demonstrated trust and contentment. He's showing you his life, Sam said, understanding Buddy's demonstration. This isn't just where he lives, this is where he belongs. Rick watched Buddy's performance with growing understanding. The bear wasn't just displaying trained behaviors. He was introducing Rick to his chosen family, demonstrating the relationships that had given his life meaning and purpose. If I sign over custody, Rick said slowly. What happens to him legally? Who ensures his care, his medical needs, his future security? Dr. Williams had been considering this exact question. We establish a formal animal partnership program. Sam becomes Buddy's primary companion, the facility provides housing and medical care, and you become a patron supporting the program financially while being part of Buddy's extended family. Everyone wins, Martha added pragmatically. Buddy gets his daddy back, we keep our therapy bear, you get to be part of something meaningful instead of controlling it, and other facilities can learn from our model. Rick looked around the courtyard one final time, at Buddy contentedly leaning against Sam, at the residents who had rallied to defend their beloved bear, at his own security team who were clearly uncomfortable with their assignment. Tyler would want me to do the right thing, Rick said finally, even if it means admitting I was wrong. The decision that should have brought resolution instead triggered the darkest chapter of Buddy's story. 3 days after Rick Thompson signed the custody transfer papers, making Sam Mitchell Buddy's legal guardian, everything went catastrophically wrong. The first sign of trouble came when Sam didn't arrive for his usual morning visit with Buddy. Dr. Williams called his cabin repeatedly, receiving no answer, while Buddy paced restlessly in the courtyard, making anxious vocalizations that alarmed the entire facility. Martha Stewart found Sam collapsed in his kitchen at noon, unconscious and unresponsive. The paramedics who transported him to Knoxville General Hospital delivered devastating news. Sam had suffered a massive stroke during the night. The preliminary diagnosis was even worse: extensive brain damage that would likely result in permanent cognitive impairment, memory loss, and possible paralysis on his left side. He may never recognize anyone again, Doctor. Rebecca Martinez, the neurologist, explained to the assembled group from Sunset Manor, the damage to his temporal lobe is extensive. Even if he recovers consciousness, his ability to form new memories or access old ones could be severely compromised. Buddy's response to Sam's absence was immediate and heartbreaking. The bear stopped eating entirely, refused to participate in any therapy activities, and spent his days pressed against the courtyard fence, staring down the road where Sam's truck should have appeared. His mournful vocalizations echoed through Sunset Manor day and night, a sound so filled with grief that several residents requested room transfers to escape the constant reminder of loss. "He knows something terrible has happened," Jennifer Walsh observed, watching Buddy's listless behavior with growing concern. "In 4 years, I've never seen him like this." "He's giving up." Harold McGee, despite his own health challenges, appointed himself Buddy's advocate and companion. The Korean War veteran spent hours sitting beside the bear's enclosure, talking quietly about Sam's condition, sharing memories of their brief but intense friendship, trying to provide comfort through human presence. "Listen here, Buddy," Harold said during one of his vigils. "Sam's fighting for his life right now, just like you fought to find him. Don't you dare give up on that man when he needs your strength most." But Buddy's decline accelerated with each passing day. Dr. Williams consulted with veterinary specialists who confirmed her worst fears. The bear was experiencing what animal behaviorists call grief-induced failure to thrive. Without intervention, Buddy could literally die of heartbreak within weeks. The situation became critical when Rick Thompson, guilt-ridden over the timing of Sam's stroke, made an unexpected offer. "I'll take Buddy back to my facility in Georgia. He'll receive round-the-clock medical care, forced feeding if necessary, whatever it takes to keep him alive until Sam recovers." "Absolutely not," Martha declared with fierce determination. "That bear just got his family back after 7 years. We're not separating them again, especially when Sam can't understand what's happening." "But Sam may never understand anything again," Dr. Williams pointed out gently. "If Buddy dies waiting for a reunion that may never come, we'll have lost them both." The moral dilemma tore the Sunset Manor community apart. Some residents supported Rick's plan, arguing that keeping Buddy alive was the priority. Others, led by Martha and Harold, insisted that separating Buddy from his chosen home would be a betrayal of everything they'd fought to achieve. Emma Walsh, with the clarity that sometimes comes from youth, posed the question that haunted everyone. What if Mr. Sam wakes up and Buddy's gone again? Won't that make him sicker? The crisis deepened when Buddy collapsed during what should have been his feeding time. The 300-pound bear simply lay down in the center of the courtyard and refused to move, his breathing shallow and labored. Emergency veterinary care revealed dangerous dehydration, malnutrition, and early signs of organ dysfunction. He has maybe 48 hours, Dr. Sarah Chen, the veterinary specialist, explained to the desperate group. We can force hydration and nutrients intravenously, but if he continues refusing food and water, his body will shut down completely. Jennifer made a decision that violated every hospital protocol, but reflected the desperation they all felt. She drove to Knoxville General Hospital and somehow convinced the ICU staff to allow a therapy animal visit for Sam's recovery. The logistics were nightmarish. Transporting a sick bear to a hospital, navigating medical regulations, ensuring safety for other patients, but Jennifer's determination overcame every obstacle. If Buddy dies without seeing Sam one more time, I'll never forgive myself, she told her supervisor, who threatened to fire her for the unauthorized arrangement. That bear has brought more healing to our residents than any medication. Maybe he can bring healing to Sam too. The reunion took place in a private room that the hospital had hastily converted for the unprecedented visit. Sam lay unconscious, connected to ventilators and monitors, his face pale and still beneath the oxygen mask. Buddy, despite his own weakness, immediately approached the bed with careful deliberation. What happened next defied medical explanation and challenged everyone's understanding of interspecies communication. Buddy gently placed his massive paw on Sam's arm and began making soft, rhythmic vocalizations, not the distressed cries he'd been producing at Sunset Manor, but something that sounded remarkably like a lullaby. Sam's vital signs, which had remained dangerously unstable for 4 days, began showing improvement within minutes of Buddy's presence. His heart rate stabilized, his breathing became less labored, and for the first time since the stroke, his brain activity showed patterns consistent with peaceful sleep rather than coma. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Martinez admitted to the assembled medical team. "The patient's neurological responses are showing improvement we haven't seen with any pharmaceutical intervention." But the truly miraculous moment came when Sam's eyes fluttered open for the first time in 5 days. His gaze was unfocused and confused, but when he saw Buddy beside his bed, something shifted in his expression. Sam's right hand, the one not affected by paralysis, slowly reached toward Buddy's head. "Buddy," Sam whispered, his voice barely audible through the oxygen mask. "My boy, you came." Buddy's response was immediate and overwhelming. The bear began crying, actual tears streaming down his massive face, while making sounds of relief and joy that brought tears to every observer's eyes. Despite his own weakness, Buddy carefully positioned himself so that Sam could maintain contact, providing comfort while drawing strength from their reunion. The medical staff documented something that would later be published in veterinary and neurological journals. Both man and bear showed immediate physiological improvement from their contact. Buddy began accepting water and soft foods within hours, while Sam's cognitive responses became more consistent and focused. "It's like they're healing each other," Dr. Martinez observed. "The bear's presence is stimulating neurological pathways in the patient that we couldn't access through conventional treatment." But even as hope returned, new challenges emerged. Hospital regulations prevented extended visits, Sam faced months of rehabilitation with uncertain outcomes, and Buddy's own health remained fragile. The reunion had saved both their lives, but their future together remained desperately uncertain. Rick Thompson, witnessing the profound bond between man and bear, made a decision that would change everything. "I'm establishing a medical fund. Whatever it costs to keep them together during Sam's recovery, I'll pay for it." The revelation that would shatter everyone's understanding of the past 7 years came from an unexpected source. Tyler Thompson's medical records. Rick, in his desperate attempt to fund Sam's recovery, had been organizing his deceased grandson's belongings to sell valuable items when he discovered a manila envelope hidden in Tyler's bedroom closet. Inside were photographs, newspaper clippings, and a child's journal that would expose a truth so shocking it would redefine everything they thought they knew about Buddy's disappearance. Tyler's journal, written in the careful handwriting of a 7-year-old, contained entries dating back 3 years before his death. The boy had been obsessed with a story he'd found online about the smartest bear in Tennessee and a sad scientist who lost his best friend. Tyler had printed dozens of articles about Sam's search for Buddy, created a scrapbook of photos showing Sam's research work, and most damning of all, had written letter after letter to his grandfather begging him to help find the missing bear. "Grandpa Rick," one letter read, "you have lots of money and no important people. Please help the nice man find his bear friend. The bear must be so scared and lonely. If you help them find each other, maybe the man won't be sad anymore." Jennifer Walsh, reading the journal entries aloud to the stunned group gathered in Sam's hospital room, discovered entry after entry documenting Tyler's growing frustration with his grandfather's indifference to Sam's plight. The child had even drawn pictures showing Buddy and Sam reunited, with himself and Rick watching happily from the sidelines. "Look at this," Martha whispered, pointing to a photograph tucked between journal pages. It showed Tyler at a computer, clearly researching animal fighting rings and rescue operations. The 7-year-old had been trying to solve Buddy's disappearance on his own when he died in the car accident. Rick sat frozen beside Sam's bed, his face ashen as the full scope of his grandson's secret investigation became clear. "He knew," Rick whispered. "Tyler knew about Buddy and Sam months before I found Buddy in that fighting ring. He'd been researching, trying to help, asking me to—" "To what?" Harold McGee demanded, his military bearing evident even from his wheelchair. "What did that little boy ask you to do?" Rick's confession came in broken fragments, each revelation more devastating than the last. Tyler had repeatedly asked his grandfather to use his business connections and financial resources to help Sam find Buddy. The boy had even suggested that Rick contact animal rescue organizations, offer reward money, or hire private investigators to solve the mystery. "I told him it wasn't our business," Rick said, his voice barely audible. "I said, wild animals belong in the wild, that the scientist probably forgot about one bear among many research subjects. Tyler kept asking, kept showing me articles about Sam's search, but I was always too busy with deals and travel to pay attention." Dr. Williams, studying the journal entries with growing horror, discovered the most damning evidence yet. Tyler's final entry, written 3 days before his death, contained a child's promise that would haunt everyone. "Grandpa won't help the sad scientist, but when I grow up, I'm going to be rich like him, and I'll find the lost bear myself. I'll bring them back together, because that's what families do." The tragic irony was overwhelming. Tyler had died while Rick was traveling for a business deal, the same pattern of misplaced priorities that had led Rick to ignore his grandson's passionate advocacy for Sam and Buddy. The boy who dreamed of reuniting separated families had died, separated from the grandfather he was trying to teach about compassion. But the revelations weren't finished. Emma Walsh, who had been quietly studying Tyler's research materials, made a connection that would expose the final, most shocking truth. "Mr. Thompson," she said with the directness only children possess, "look at these dates. Tyler was researching animal fighting rings 2 months before you say you found Buddy in Kentucky." Rick's silence was answer enough, but Martha Stewart pressed the issue with relentless determination. "Honey, that little boy did your homework for you, didn't he? He found Buddy before you ever set foot in that fighting ring." The complete truth emerged slowly, painfully, like poison being drawn from a wound. Rick hadn't stumbled upon Buddy by accident. He had followed Tyler's research, contacted the same fighting rings Tyler had identified online, and specifically sought out the bear his grandson had been trying to help. But instead of reuniting Buddy with Sam, as Tyler had dreamed, Rick had purchased the bear for his own emotional needs. "I thought I was honoring Tyler's memory," Rick said desperately. "He wanted to help that bear, so I rescued Buddy. I gave him good care, proper veterinary attention, a safe environment." "You gave him everything except what he needed most," Sam said weakly from his hospital bed, speaking with more clarity than he'd shown since the stroke. "You gave him survival, but you took away his purpose." Buddy, who had been lying quietly beside Sam's bed, seemed to understand the gravity of the revelations. The bear rose carefully and approached Rick with deliberate steps. Instead of showing aggression or fear, Buddy gently placed his massive paw on Rick's lap and made soft vocalizations that sounded remarkably like forgiveness. "He doesn't blame you," Emma observed with wonder. "Even though you kept him away from his daddy for 4 years, he knows you were hurting too." Rick's breakdown was complete and devastating. 7 years of suppressed grief, guilt over Tyler's death, and the crushing realization that he had betrayed his grandson's deepest wishes overwhelmed his carefully constructed emotional barriers. "Tyler would hate me," he sobbed. "He asked me to help, and instead I made everything worse. I stole 4 years from them, 4 years Buddy could have spent with Sam, 4 years Sam could have healed instead of searching." Martha Stewart, despite her own anger at Rick's deception, found herself moved by his genuine anguish. "Honey, Tyler was 7 years old." "7-year-olds don't hate their granddaddies for making mistakes. They love them and hope they'll learn to do better." Dr. Martinez, who had been observing the emotional revelations with professional interest, noted something remarkable in Sam's responses. The patient's cognitive function is improving dramatically during these emotionally charged conversations. The combination of Buddy's presence and the resolution of long-standing mysteries is creating neurological pathways that pharmaceutical interventions couldn't achieve. Jennifer, still documenting everything with her phone, captured the moment when Sam reached toward Rick with his functioning right hand. "Rick," Sam said with increasing strength, "Tyler sounds like he was an amazing little boy. He saw something that needed fixing and tried to fix it. Maybe we can finish what he started." The suggestion triggered a transformation in Rick that surprised everyone. Instead of wallowing in guilt, he began channeling his grief into action with the same intensity he'd once applied to business deals. "Tyler's college fund," Rick said suddenly. $200,000 I've been saving since he was born. I want to use it to create something permanent, something that honors what he was trying to do." Harold McGee, who had remained silent during most of the revelations, finally spoke with the authority of someone who had survived war and understood the weight of redemptive action. "Son, guilt is just fear dressed up in fancy clothes. Your grandson saw a problem and wanted to fix it. Question is, are you going to wallow in what you did wrong, or are you going to do what Tyler would have wanted?" The answer came in the form of a proposal that would revolutionize animal-assisted therapy across the country. Rick outlined his vision through tears. The Tyler Thompson Memorial Foundation would establish the first network of interspecies therapy partnerships, connecting trained animals with patients suffering from trauma, grief, and neurological conditions. "Sam and Buddy will be our first official partnership," Rick explained, not as owner and property, but as pioneers in a new model of healing. Sam's expertise in animal behavior, Buddy's emotional intelligence, and the relationships they've built at Sunset Manor will become the template for programs nationwide. Dr. Williams saw the potential immediately. We could revolutionize treatment for Alzheimer's, PTSD, depression, chronic pain, conditions where traditional medicine has limited success but where animal companionship shows remarkable results. But the most powerful endorsement came from Buddy himself. As Rick outlined his plans, the bear moved to the center of the room and performed the complex sequence of behaviors he'd used to tell his story during the custody battle. This time, however, he added new elements, approaching each person in the room, offering his paw in what appeared to be a formal introduction, then returning to Sam's bedside with obvious contentment. "He's accepting all of us as family," Emma said with the insight that adults often missed. "He's saying we all belong together now." The transformation in Sam's condition accelerated as the emotional resolution took hold. Within days, his speech improved dramatically, his memory began returning in fragments, and his physical therapy progressed faster than anyone had predicted. The neurological team documented improvements they attributed directly to what they termed interspecies emotional therapy. Buddy's presence is stimulating neuroplasticity in ways we've never observed, Dr. Martinez explained to visiting researchers who had come to study the unprecedented case. The patient's brain is literally rewiring itself in response to his emotional connection with the bear. Rick's involvement evolved from guilty obligation to genuine partnership. He began visiting daily, bringing Tyler's research materials to share with Sam, learning about animal behavior from a master teacher, and gradually building the relationship with Buddy that his grandson had envisioned. "Tyler would be so proud," Rick said one afternoon, watching Buddy gently help Sam with his physical therapy exercises. "He always said I needed to slow down and pay attention to what really mattered." "It took me 7 years and almost losing everything to understand what a 7-year-old saw immediately." Martha, who had become the unofficial chronicler of their extended family's story, captured the essence of their journey in her characteristically direct way. "Sometimes it takes breaking everything before you can build it back right. Tyler started this story, but it took all of us to finish it." The revelation of Tyler's role in their reunion transformed guilt into purpose, secrets into healing, and a tragedy that had separated them into a legacy that would unite countless others facing similar struggles. The little boy who had died trying to reunite families had, through his research and love, created something far greater than he could have imagined. 6 months after Sam's stroke, Sunset Manor had transformed into something unprecedented in American healthcare, a place where healing transcended every boundary previously thought insurmountable. The Tyler Thompson Memorial Foundation's first interspecies therapy partnership had not only saved Sam's life and reunited him with Buddy, but had created a model that was revolutionizing treatment for neurological conditions, grief disorders, and age-related depression across the country. Sam Mitchell, now 69 and walking with only a slight limp from his stroke, stood in the redesigned courtyard that had become a pilgrimage site for medical professionals worldwide. His cognitive recovery had defied every prediction, with doctors attributing his neuroplasticity improvements directly to what they now called Buddy therapy, the daily interactions with his beloved bear that stimulated brain pathways no medication could reach. "Good morning, family," Sam said, addressing the unusual gathering that had become their daily ritual. Buddy sat beside his wheelchair-accessible bench. Martha Stewart occupied her favorite spot under the oak tree. Harold McGee had positioned his wheelchair for optimal sun exposure. Jennifer Walsh was setting up her nursing station nearby, and Emma, now 9 years old and Buddy's self-appointed assistant trainer, was arranging art supplies for their morning creativity session. Rick Thompson arrived precisely at 8:30, as he had every morning for the past 4 months. His transformation from corporate predator to devoted family member had been as remarkable as Sam's medical recovery. The man who had once measured success in quarterly profits now found purpose in documenting Buddy's therapeutic techniques, funding research initiatives, and slowly building the relationship with the bear that his grandson Tyler had dreamed of. "Buddy's ready for his morning rounds," Emma announced, consulting the chart she maintained with scientific precision that would have impressed any medical professional. "Mrs. Peterson needs extra comfort today. Her son is visiting from California, and she's worried about telling him she wants to move to hospice care." Buddy's response demonstrated the sophisticated emotional intelligence that had made him legendary in animal therapy circles. The 350-pound bear, he had gained healthy weight since reuniting with Sam, moved with deliberate gentleness toward the building where 83-year-old Rose Peterson waited. His approach to each resident was uniquely calibrated: playful energy for those fighting depression, calm presence for those facing difficult decisions, protective positioning for those experiencing anxiety. "He's reading her emotional state before he even enters the room," Dr. Williams observed to the visiting researchers who came weekly to study their program. Buddy's demonstrating cognitive and emotional intelligence that challenges our fundamental understanding of interspecies communication. The morning routine that had developed naturally over months reflected the deep bonds that transcended traditional categories of human, animal, patient, and caregiver. Sam worked with residents on basic animal communication techniques, teaching them to recognize Buddy's different vocalizations and body language. Martha supervised art therapy sessions where Buddy would collaborate on paintings by placing his paws on brushes or selecting colors through careful positioning. Harold McGee had appointed himself the facility's historian, documenting every interaction, every breakthrough, every moment of healing that occurred through their extended family structure. His military precision in record-keeping provided the data that was transforming academic understanding of animal-assisted therapy from anecdotal success stories into peer-reviewed medical literature. "Today marks 6 months since Sam's stroke," Harold announced to the group, consulting his meticulously maintained logs. "In that time, we've documented a 73% improvement in cognitive function, complete elimination of depression symptoms, and physical recovery that exceeds every medical prediction. More importantly, we've created something that Tyler Thompson would be proud of." The mention of Tyler always brought a moment of reverent silence to their gatherings. Rick had established a memorial corner in the courtyard featuring Tyler's photograph, his research materials about Sam and Buddy, and the child's journal entries that had exposed the truth about their reunion. But rather than a shrine to loss, it had become a celebration of how one little boy's compassion had created something beautiful and lasting. Jennifer Walsh, who had completed her veterinary technician certification while working full-time at Sunset Manor, represented the professional validation their program desperately needed. Her detailed documentation of Buddy's therapeutic techniques, combined with her medical training, provided the scientific credibility that allowed other facilities to replicate their success. "We've received approval requests from 47 facilities in 12 states, Jennifer reported to the group. "The waiting list for Tyler Foundation partnerships extends into next year, and the preliminary results from our pilot programs are exceeding every expectation." But the true measure of their success wasn't found in statistics or academic publications. It was visible in the daily miracles that occurred when love transcended species barriers. 80-year-old James Morrison, who hadn't spoken since his wife's death 2 years earlier, had begun having conversations with Buddy that gradually expanded to include human family members. 74-year-old Dorothy Chen, confined to bed with late-stage Parkinson's disease, showed dramatic improvement in motor function during Buddy's visits. Emma Walsh had become the program's secret weapon, her intuitive understanding of both human and bear psychology making her an invaluable bridge between species. Her after-school job involved teaching other children how to interact safely with therapy animals, creating a new generation that understood interspecies relationships as normal rather than extraordinary. Buddy taught me that smart isn't about knowing stuff, Emma explained to a group of visiting pediatric psychology students. It's about understanding what other people need and figuring out how to help them feel better. The afternoon brought the weekly video conference that had become essential to the Tyler Foundation's expansion efforts. Facilities across the country joined virtually to share experiences, challenges, and breakthroughs in their own animal partnership programs. Sam served as the lead consultant, his expertise in animal behavior combined with his personal experience creating the curriculum that other programs followed. Remember, Sam told the assembled facility directors, you can't force these relationships. The animals choose their human partners just as much as humans choose animals. Our job is creating environments where natural bonds can develop safely. Rick's role in these conferences had evolved from financial sponsor to philosophical advocate. His transformation from someone who viewed animals as property to someone who understood them as emotional beings with inherent dignity provided powerful testimony for skeptical administrators concerned about liability and regulations. I measured Buddy's value in dollars for 4 years, Rick told the group, and nearly lost everything important because I couldn't see his real worth. These partnerships aren't about what we can get from animals. They're about what we can become when we open ourselves to relationships that don't fit traditional categories. The evening routine at Sunset Manor had become a community celebration rather than institutional bedtime procedures. Residents gathered in the main lounge for what Martha had dubbed Gratitude Hour, a time for sharing the day's small victories, acknowledging struggles, and expressing appreciation for their unusual extended family. Buddy participated in these gatherings with remarkable sensitivity, positioning himself near residents who needed comfort, offering gentle physical contact to those who were lonely, and somehow managing to be present for everyone who needed his attention. His ability to read emotional needs and respond appropriately had become the subject of multiple research studies attempting to understand the neurological basis for interspecies empathy. Buddy sees what we need before we know we need it, observed Dr. Martinez during one of her follow-up visits with Sam. He's demonstrating emotional intelligence that rivals trained therapy professionals. But perhaps the most significant development was the gradual healing of Rick's relationship with his own grief. Working daily with Buddy had taught him lessons about love, loss, and redemption that years of therapy hadn't achieved. The bear who had represented his attempt to replace Tyler had instead taught him how to honor his grandson's memory through service to others. Tyler wanted to help the sad scientist find his lost bear, Rick reflected during one of their evening gatherings. What he actually did was teach all of us how to find each other. The transformation extended beyond individuals to the entire philosophy of elder care at Sunset Manor. The facility had become a destination for families seeking environments where aging was viewed as a continuation of life rather than preparation for death. The waiting list for admission stretched 18 months, with families specifically requesting placement in Buddy's program. Dr. Williams had documented improvements across every measurable category: reduced medication needs, increased family visits, higher satisfaction scores, and most remarkably, a significant decrease in transfer requests to other facilities. Residents wanted to stay at Sunset Manor because they had found family, purpose, and joy in their relationships with both Buddy and each other. As autumn approached, marking 1 full year since Sam and Buddy's reunion, plans were underway for an event that would showcase their success to the national medical community. The first annual Tyler Thompson Memorial Conference on Interspecies Therapy would bring together researchers, practitioners, and families whose lives had been transformed by animal partnerships. Tyler started this story when he was 7 years old, Sam said, watching Buddy interact gently with Emma during their evening art session. He saw a problem that adults couldn't solve and believed love could fix it. Everything we've built here grows from that little boy's faith in the power of families to heal each other. The conference would feature presentations on neuroplasticity improvements, emotional regulation benefits, and social connection enhancements documented across their growing network of partnership programs. But the real testament to their success would be the presence of Buddy himself, demonstrating the sophisticated emotional intelligence that had made him not just a therapy animal, but a teacher of what interspecies love could accomplish. Martha Stewart, approaching her 73rd birthday with renewed energy and purpose, had become the program's most effective advocate. Her presentations to healthcare administrators combined practical wisdom with emotional truth in ways that converted skeptics into supporters. "Honey, I've worked with people for 50 years, and I've learned that healing happens when someone shows up consistently with unconditional love," Martha told audiences across the country. "Doesn't matter if that someone has 2 legs or 4 paws. What matters is the showing up." The sun set over the Smoky Mountains, painting the Sunset Manor courtyard in golden light that made their impossible family seem both magical and completely natural. Sam sat with his hand resting on Buddy's massive head, Rick reading Tyler's journal entries aloud to anyone who would listen, Martha organizing tomorrow's activities with military precision, Harold documenting the day's events in his meticulous logs, Jennifer reviewing medical charts that showed continued improvement across all residents, and Emma teaching Buddy a new game that somehow involved mathematics and art simultaneously. "This is how it should be," Sam said quietly, speaking the words that had become their unofficial motto. Growing old, surrounded by love, not forgotten in corners, finding family in unexpected places, healing in ways we never imagined possible. At 68, Sam Mitchell thought his story was over. Widowed, forgotten by colleagues, living alone in a cabin with only memories for company. Sound familiar? Like so many of us approaching our golden years, Sam believed his best days were behind him. Then Buddy, a 300-pound bear who remembered their bond after 7 years of separation, showed him something profound. It's never too late to find family, purpose, or healing. Sam's stroke could have been the final chapter, but instead became the beginning of his most meaningful years. Surrounded by Martha, Harold, Jennifer, little Emma, and even Rick, the man who'd wronged him, Sam discovered that aging doesn't mean ending, it means deepening. At Sunset Manor, he found what we're all searching for. People who show up consistently with unconditional love, a reason to wake up each morning, and the knowledge that our wisdom matters. Sam's story proves that our most important relationships might still be waiting to unfold, that healing happens at any age when someone, whether 2-legged or 4-pawed, chooses to love us exactly as we are. Your next chapter could be your best chapter. Engagement questions. What moment in your life taught you that it's never too late for new beginnings? Have you ever experienced the healing power of an unexpected friendship or companion? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you found family in unexpected places.